signed, saying, well, I don't really, I'm not, you're really not my client, and so forth. So, there are problems, but if you're aware of them, and most particularly, we need to be aware of what damage we might do by allowing people to trust us on the assumption that we are representing them when we're not really representing the group. And so that can cause problems because they feel like they were betrayed if we do something that they didn't approve of.
So it may be that even as a family doctor, if you will, or the family lawyer, that you may be making a recommendation, you know, maybe you should be bringing somebody else to the table to help to explain to you from your standpoint or what you need to do.
Well, that's where it depends on the situation always. I mean, if you have a small family business, you can't afford to have one attorney for everybody in the business, and that's not going to work. It's going to break down communications. So, but at the same hand, the same time, it's really important that you have some training in family systems that makes you understand what's going on in this family. How do they communicate? What are the benefits of that, and what are the hazards of how they communicate or how they don't communicate?
Right.
And then educate the client that you can't do this alone. You dad, or you and mom, can't just make these decisions. We've got to talk to your children about what you're doing with your estate, and that's not a really popular recommendation, I would have to say.
Yeah.
When I'm dead, they'll find out.
Right. Well, let's move on a little bit. What are some of the conflicts for family members relating to the business that you need to consider? This is a good one.
Well, a common one, probably one of the most common one, is that the family may have 3 or 4 children, and there's only, the parents would love to, particularly the father usually, would love to, because he worries about money, and the mother worries about relationships.
Okay.
So the father would like to have everybody in this business with the assumption, irrational as it is, that, well, it was taking care of mom and dad and their children, that it can now take care of mom and dad until they retire, as well as each of the children and their families.
Yeah.
And now you have 4 people eating out of the trough,
right,
as distinguished from the
sucking
original
off
one,
resources.
Right, primal family. So that's kind of unrealistic, and you have to disabuse the parents of that fantasy. And then secondly, if you're going to have, well, maybe 1 or 2 of the children is in the business, and maybe 2 of the other children are not in the business.
Right.
And as I mentioned before, the kind of fantasy that clients have is that everything should be equal. So each of the child is going to get 25% of the business. That leads to problems.
Yeah.
Big problems. And
so what about the thought, you and I talked about this question preparation, the view, so it's sort of the outsiders and the insiders, and the plunderers and the parasites. Maybe you could talk about that for a moment.
Yes, well, let's take just as an example that there would be 2 children in the business and 2 children outside the business. And so very commonly it used to be the sons would be in the business and the daughters wouldn't be in the business because they were going to get married, they have their own families, blah, blah, blah. So, but then when dad and mom die, they leave 25% of the business to each of the children. So the daughters are sitting over here owning 25% of the company, and then their brothers are over there running the company, and they look like they're living a pretty nice lifestyle because, you know, they're driving nice cars and they go to these conventions and exotic places for their business, and the daughters are sitting over there getting nothing because there's no dividends being paid. And when they timidly ask their brothers, why aren't there any dividends being paid, they always blame the accountant because they say, well, if it's dividends are paid, then we pay taxes on it in the company, and then you're going to pay taxes on it. It's double taxed. We don't want that to happen. And then, so, well, my accountant said, you could be subchapter S and that would happen. Well, that's a lot of other problems, and we don't, because anyway, that's when you
conversation that can go.
Well, when you elect subchapter S, now the simple tax return that the daughters had now has all this income in which they've never seen.
Yes.
And so
where's this money?
Yeah, where's the money? I said I earned $50,000 this year, and there's no money here. And so that's So what happens when one well-known person in this field wrote an article years ago, which I stole these
Okay.
parasites and
Plunderers.
plunderers, and the outsiders see their brothers, in this case, getting all these perks and making nice salaries and so forth, and they're sitting over here getting nothing. So they think their brothers are plunderers, and we own, the two of us daughters own half the business, but you're getting all the benefits. And the brothers, on the other hand, said, look, we all inherited this. You know, you never worked for it, I never worked for it, it was just given to us. So you're just complaining, but you're not working in the business, so you want something for nothing. You're just a parasite. You have never worked in the business. So it's not the words they use,
Yeah.
but the feelings are there.
Yes.
That I'm working hard, and doesn't take long for a person working in a business to think they're entitled to all the money they're getting, that they're earning it, and that somebody who's not working there shouldn't get anything. And they forget equity versus service, and so that's a big problem in planning for family business.
Okay. So folks, like I said, we're going to focus mostly on issues, and we're not going to give you all the answers today, and we don't know all the answers anyway. So anyway, but also because of time constraints, and I want to be sure to cover some of these important issues with John. So John, let's move on. What are some emotional issues that we need to consider for family members? So we talked about this one thing with the resentment with the plunderers and the parasites. What are some other things that we need to think about?
I'm an amateur psychologist.
Okay.
It's not my profession, but I've studied a lot of it. But two big issues I see in families are fairness, like three big issues. Fairness, and equality is not always fair, is what I was just discussing.
Yes.
The autonomy, the children are seeking to get out of the family system, and if the family system is embedded in the business and you're working in the business, it's really hard to get to the point where you're making, to feel a sense of autonomy. I'm still under the control of my brother or whatever, sister or whomever, who's my supervisor or whatever. And it was fairness I discussed. Another one is love. Money is considered a symbol of love in our society, and so among families, equality tends to gravitate toward fairness, but that's not a standard in business. That's fatal to a business to treat everybody equally. So those pop up and underlie a lot of the discussions, and
I guess there's also the thing that dad's always been, or could be mom, anyway, their whole life may revolve around this business, and that's separate from maybe what's going on with their children's lives, and so there may be a sense of resentment from that standpoint as well.
Well, there can be a resentment that the business was their favorite son or child, because they spent more time and devotion on making the business. That's dad's problem usually, not unusual even in a non-family business, that dad is married to his job. I don't know whether that's changing when I'm speaking, my generation and maybe yours, but the next generation, that's not quite the same because women are working.
Yes. Maybe we should talk for a moment about key employees who aren't family members. What are some issues for some of these people?
That's another dynamic in a family-owned business, because the non-family members who are working in the business realize that maybe there's a glass ceiling, maybe not so transparent a glass ceiling, that my last name isn't the same last name as the owner of the business, and so my likelihood of ever becoming an owner and a principal person, even a partner in the business, is sort of shut off. So this is not my career may be stunted, and unless I want to go somewhere else and find something. So, and then there's resentment that you could be working there 25 years, and along comes the son out of college, the owner's son out of college, and right away they got to find a job for him. And well, this is the guy who's the manager, say, and he's doing, and he doesn't need another. And there's no job opening here to be filled. And secondly, the person who's being hired has no